The sky had turned dark far too early that evening. Thick clouds rolled in, the wind howled through the trees, and rain began to pour like it would never stop. In the middle of this growing storm, a young boy, just 9 years old, stood shivering, soaked to the bone, with his little sister cradled in his arms. Her leg was badly hurt, and they were miles away from help. But even in the face of fear, pain, and the wild storm around him, he didn't stop. He couldn't, because he was the only one who could save her. This is the story of a brave young boy named Liam and his little sister, Emma. What started as a fun afternoon playing near the woods quickly turned into a fight for survival. When Emma slipped and took a hard fall, unable to walk, Liam made a decision most kids his age wouldn't even imagine. He picked her up and started walking. Through the mud, through the rain, with thunder cracking above and trees swaying dangerously, Liam kept going. There were no grown-ups around. No cell phone signal, just the storm and his promise to keep us safe. With every step, the weight grew heavier and the night darker. But something inside him kept pushing forward. Maybe it was love. Maybe it was courage. Or maybe, when you're all someone has, you become stronger than you ever thought possible. What happened next will leave you speechless. How far did Liam go? And what stood in their way before help finally arrived? Stay with us as we dive into this unbelievable true story of heart, heroism, and the unbreakable bond between a brother and sister. Just a few hours earlier, it had been a peaceful afternoon. Liam and Emma were playing near the edge of the forest behind their grandparents' house. They'd done it plenty of times before, racing sticks in the stream, collecting shiny rocks, and making up silly stories about animals in the trees. Liam had always looked out for his sister. Even though she was only 2 years younger, Emma was the adventurous one, always climbing, always running ahead. That day was no different, until it was. Emma had wandered off the trail, giggling and calling for Liam to follow, but as she stepped onto a wet patch of ground near a slope, her foot slipped. The fall wasn't long, but it was hard. A sharp cry echoed through the trees, and when Liam reached her, she was holding her leg, tears streaming down her face. She couldn't stand. She couldn't even move it. And just as panic started to rise, so did the wind. They were deeper into the woods than they realized, and the storm was rolling in fast. Trees groaned, the sky flashed, and the first drops of rain splattered against Liam's face. He knew they had to get out, but Emma couldn't walk. With no phone, no trail markers, and no sign of help, Liam did the only thing he could think of. He lifted her onto his back and started walking. Each step was a struggle. The ground was slippery, branches whipped across his arms, and thunder cracked so loud it made them both jump. But Liam didn't stop. He didn't even look back. The fear in Emma's eyes, the trust she placed in him, it was all that mattered. Somewhere out there was safety, but the forest was big, and the storm had just begun. The deeper Liam went into the woods, the more unfamiliar everything started to look. Trees all seemed the same, and the narrow path they'd once followed had disappeared under fallen branches and thick mud. The storm was getting worse by the minute. Rain soaked his clothes, turning them heavy, and Emma's quiet sobs in his ear made his heart ache. Still, he held her tightly, whispering that everything was going to be okay, even though he wasn't sure himself. Back at their grandparents' house, worry had already started to creep in. Their grandma glanced at the clock, realizing the kids had been gone longer than usual. Their grandpa grabbed a flashlight and stepped outside, calling their names into the wind. But the storm had drowned out everything, even hope. Meanwhile, in the woods, Liam's strength was starting to fade. His arms ached, and his legs were trembling from carrying Emma over slippery roots and soaked leaves. At one point, he tripped and fell to his knees, nearly dropping her. Emma cried out in pain, and Liam's heart dropped. He pulled her close and apologized over and over, even though it wasn't his fault. He wiped the rain from her face with his sleeve and looked around. Darkness was creeping in. Then came the sound, something moving in the distance. Not wind, not thunder, something else. Liam froze, holding his breath. His eyes scanned the trees, his heart pounding. Was it an animal? Another person? Should he run? Or hide? He didn't know. All he knew was that they couldn't stop now. As night fell over the forest and the storm raged louder than ever, Liam took a deep breath and kept walking, one step at a time, holding on to his sister and the one hope that someone somewhere was coming. Liam's legs were barely holding him up now. Every muscle in his small body screamed with pain, and the cold was starting to sink into his bones. The forest around him was almost completely dark, with only flashes of lightning showing twisted tree branches and muddy ground ahead. The rain was non-stop, turning everything slick and dangerous. Emma's breathing had become shallow. She was no longer crying, just quiet, her head resting weakly on his shoulder. That silence scared Liam more than anything. He didn't know where he was going anymore. The trail was gone. The trees seemed to close in on them, whispering in the wind like they didn't want him to leave. Every sound made his heart race, snapping twigs, rustling leaves, the sudden crack of thunder right overhead. He felt completely alone, yet the fear that something or someone might be watching them crept into his mind. Were they lost for good? Was he leading Emma deeper into danger? Somewhere in the distance, he saw a faint glow. It flickered like a light, or maybe just lightning behind the trees. He couldn't be sure, but he moved toward it, hope clashing with fear in his chest. The ground suddenly dropped beneath his feet. His shoes slid on the wet slope, and before he could react, he was falling, both of them tumbling down through the mud and brush. They landed hard. Liam gasped for air, his arms still wrapped around Emma, shielding her from the worst of it. His elbow was scraped and bleeding, and Emma moaned softly, in pain again. The glow was gone. Everything was quiet except the rain. Liam looked around, trying to figure out where they were. Somewhere ahead, just beyond the darkness, something moved again. And this time, it was closer. Liam lay still for a moment, trying to catch his breath. His arms were trembling, and Emma wasn't saying anything now. Her eyes were open, but she looked dazed, blinking slowly as rain dripped down her cheeks. He gently touched her forehead. It was warm. Too warm. A wave of panic washed over him. She wasn't just hurt anymore. She was starting to burn up. The long hours in the cold, the pain, the fear, it was taking its toll. Liam knew she needed help fast. All things could get worse. Much worse. He stood up shakily, cradling her against his chest. That's when he noticed it. The faint glow was back, but now it was coming from a different direction. A soft, warm light, not lightning. Maybe a house. A cabin. He didn't know, but it was the only sign of hope he had. Gritting his teeth, he pushed forward, every step harder than the last. Trees thinned slightly as he moved toward the glow, but then came the sound again. That rustling. Only this time, it wasn't behind them. It was ahead. Liam froze, holding Emma tightly, squinting into the darkness. A shadow moved between the trees. Not an animal, too tall. A person. His heart pounded louder than the thunder. For a split second, he wanted to scream for help. But what if it wasn't someone safe? What if going forward meant more danger? Then came the real twist. A voice called out. A man's voice. But it didn't say their names. It wasn't anyone from home. It was a stranger. "Hey, what are you doing out here?" The voice shouted, sharp and serious. Liam's breath caught. He was no longer alone in the woods. But whether that was good or bad, he still didn't know. Liam tightened his grip on Emma, heart pounding in his chest. The man's voice cut through the storm again, louder this time. "Are you kids hurt?" There was a flashlight beam now, flickering between the trees. Liam hesitated for a moment, unsure, but Emma stirred in his arms, letting out a soft, weak cry. That was enough. He stepped forward into the light, calling out with all the strength he had left. "Please help, my sister's hurt." The man rushed toward them, pulling off his jacket and wrapping it around Emma. "You've been out here all night?" he asked, voice softening. Liam could only nod, too exhausted to speak. The man radioed someone, rescue, maybe, and told Liam they were close to a ranger station. "You're safe now," he said. Within minutes, more lights appeared. Flashlights, voices, people moving fast. One of them took Emma gently from Liam's arms, wrapping her in a blanket. Another helped Liam walk. His knees gave out as soon as they reached a dry patch of ground. For the first time, he let himself cry. Back at the ranger station, a warm room, dry clothes, and medical help waited. Emma was treated for a sprained leg and mild hypothermia. The medic said if Liam hadn't carried her all that way, things could have turned out very differently. Everyone called him a hero, but Liam didn't feel like one. He just knew he couldn't leave his sister behind. Just when things seemed over, the unexpected twist came. The man who found them sat quietly in the corner, watching Liam. A ranger walked over and said, "You're lucky he was out here tonight. He wasn't even on duty, just came out for a walk." Said something told him to check this trail. Sometimes fate steps in when you least expect it. In the days that followed, the story of Liam and Emma spread quickly through the town. Local news picked it up, and soon, people from all over were talking about the 9-year-old boy who carried his injured sister through a storm to save her life. But Liam didn't care about the attention. All that mattered to him was that Emma was okay. She was healing, smiling again, and back to her curious, brave self, this time with a crutch and a funny story to tell about being carried like a baby. Their grandparents were overwhelmed with emotion, proud and grateful. They couldn't believe the strength and courage Liam had shown. The park ranger, the man who just happened to be in the right place at the right time, visited the kids a few days later. He brought them both small compasses and said, "Next time you explore, make sure you can find your way home." They all laughed, but there was truth in his words. For Liam, the experience changed him. He realized that being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you keep going even when you are. The bond between him and Emma grew even stronger, and he never looked at the woods the same way again. The forest still held adventure, but now he knew it could test you too. Looking back, people called it a miracle. A storm, an injured child, a lost path, and somehow, against all odds, a young boy's determination carried them through it. Liam never asked to be a hero. He just did what he knew was right. And maybe that's the real heart of the story. Love, even in the smallest person, can do something unbelievably big when it's needed the most.